dignity as any other traveler. So therefore there have to be provisions, and this is something that is it's an attitudinal barrier that I think most of us also need to kind of overcome, because what we do not realize is that if there is a ramp, if there is an auditory signal, if there is a visual signal, then as far as the physical disabilities are concerned, already the place becomes as accessible as it would be to a non-disabled person. There is no problem in a blind man walking 3 blocks or 5 blocks or catching a bus, going wherever they need to, provided that there are braille strips, provided that there are auditory signals to help them to cross the roads. One doesn't have to be dependent. This entire dependent lifestyle that we envision for persons with disability is also partly because of our own attitude, because we do not realize that environments are actually modified to suit what is the majority norm. And since disabled persons fall through the cracks of that majority norm, the environment is never modified to their needs. If it were, then we would find a lot more disabled persons, a lot more independent. So Javed filed this case against the Union of India, and because of that there were orders that were passed in that case where they said for air travel you will not pick up a disabled person and just, like a sack of potatoes and push them into a plane. That is against their dignity. You will get some sort of lifting apparatus or a ramp to lead up to the aircraft. You will provide all amenities so that disabled persons can use all public transport systems like, aeroplanes or trains, etc. Of course, Javed's case was restricted to planes, but it's moved on, and trains now also slowly are starting to get one compartment that is disabled friendly. Now again, we will probably have to get into court to say that the implementation is too slow, it's too little, and even that one compartment is there in just a few showcase trains. It's not really permeating down to ground level, and most disabled people find it extremely uncomfortable to take on a train journey because it's not disabled friendly. Yeah. At this point, I just want to ascertain for myself whether you all are asleep or whether you all with me. So, can I ask any one of you, what is the law in your own country?
Actually, we have a law for disabled in Pakistan, but as we have other laws, there is no compliance in that law, and we don't see such active advocacy and mainstream people's movement for the rights of disabled people. Though we have some bits and pieces, some initiatives for disabled persons, like some NGOs and some organizations are working for disability rights. On and off, they organize some sports activities and some other activities for them. And some researches are also going on, but not on large and significant scale. And we have 2.5% disability quota in public sector jobs. And but the situation is very similar to India, that you can't see even 2% disabled people working in public sector. So situation is not really different from India, and we also come from the same disease of non-compliance.
Okay, yeah.
Can I ask a question instead of sharing?
Of course, certainly.
I'm from Nepal, I'm Govinda. My colleague will talk about Nepali law and practices in Nepal, but I have a question for you. My question is, you as you said, India has a law, but there is a huge question of implementation of those laws. And you also said that there is a plan to move to the Supreme Court in order to have this law implemented, right? My question here is, we do have the same problem in many areas, and we all South Asians have the problem of non-implementation of court order. So, I mean, in Nepal, what we generally do is file a contempt of court case. But are there other, tools or other ways to move to the court? Not the contempt of. Besides this contempt of court, apart from the contempt of court, are there any other, ways that you use to get this judgment implemented?
Well, actually, it's been my experience that sometimes as lawyers, we also need to understand things from the other point of view. Sometimes we also ask for what is not possible for the administration to deliver, and we also don't break it up for them in order to be able to understand and take small steps. It's like if there's a baby and you expect this baby to suddenly become Milkha Singh and start running the Olympics, it's not going to happen. Yeah. Well, sometimes that's also partly what we expect our governments to do. So what happens then is we get a lot of non-implementable orders, or orders which they find it extremely difficult to implement, and then you have to move for contempt. I have found that it's a far better way to deal with things, to actually break up what you want and to ask for it a bit at a time. It does increase litigation. For example, we have a problem in the mental health sector. In India, we have only about 3,600 psychiatrists in all of India. We have some 600 to 700 psychologists. We have maybe 200 psychiatric nurses. We have no psychiatric social workers. And our Mental Health Act mandates that you cannot have an institution for the mentally ill unless it is headed by a psychiatrist. So, there is an order that was obtained in Arunachal Pradesh for a mental health facility which has just been sitting for the last 5 years or more because they don't have a psychiatrist in the state. So, they can't set up the facility. You know what I'm saying? So the point is that I think it's also important. Similarly, there is an order from the Delhi High Court that says that there are so many places which have been identified which ought to have sign language interpreters for the deaf, or people should be trained so that they can understand sign language. The point is, again, it's not an order which you can implement today because there are just about 200 to 300 sign language interpreters in this whole country. They've, I think, gone up to about 800 now. So the first thing you need to do is to actually understand not only from the point of view of the user but also from the point of view of the person who's going to provide the amenities, the service provider, what is the best way so that you can achieve something. And then sometimes, litigation can become cooperative rather than adversarial. I had filed a matter, under the Mental Health Act, actually, well, under the, Constitution. I mean, I had filed under the Right to Life. I had filed in the Delhi High Court, making the Ministry of Health a party, to say that we have this huge gap in mental health services, and therefore we need increase in the number of psychiatrists in the country, and the Medical Council of India is just not doing its job. And because we had set out in the petition exactly what the scenario was and what were the number of seats, immediately within a month of our filing the petition, the state, when on the first date they came, they said it's non-adversarial, we'll see what can be done, we understand this is a huge problem. They came back after a month thereafter And they said, we are already in the process of making a notification and we are increasing the medical seats all around, not just for psychiatry MD, but all around, so that you will get double the number of psychiatrists per annum coming out of medical colleges. And now that wasn't anywhere near enough, because they had 175 being added to the quota every year, but the way we looked at it was that 350 is better than 175. So we take this, we go back in there and ask for something else a little later. You know what I'm saying? But this, at least, let it be implemented. So if you ask for, or if you litigate for what I call doables, and you've ascertained, you've taken the trouble to ascertain that this is a doable, here is the budget, this is the resource, this is how you're going to use it. If you already have that, if you have a plan in your mind, then it becomes easier. So instead of then having to repetitively go in for contempt, it's easier to break ground there. The other thing that we've discovered is that a lot of times implementation also comes from attitude. Attitude comes from awareness. So it's very important to have a two-prong. In India, unfortunately, no matter how much we've tried, all the stakeholders, the awareness levels we have actually not really looked at. It's a non-litigationist approach, but it's an approach that works, because a lot of the litigations that we fight, particularly in the employment sector, for example, we have a Chief Commissioner of Persons with Disabilities, which is the authority that's been established under the Persons with Disabilities Act to look at the problems of persons with disability. So you can go directly to your Chief Commissioner or your State Commissioners. Now, the Chief Commissioner, in the very first term, had some 900 cases on employment alone. And the biggest body of litigation or work, whatever you like to call it, that has been done by the Chief Commissioners in their capacity as courts, to the restricted extent they have been given the powers of a court, has been in the area of employment. And a large part of this has nothing to do with the fact that it can't be implemented, it should not be implemented. It's got a lot to do with the mental makeup of the person who's facing you, who comes in to argue against giving this disabled person this particular employment, because genuinely in their minds they actually feel that this person is not capable. And that is attitudinal, that is awareness. So if you really want to buy media to contempt, then a large part of your activity also has to be focused on awareness. Does that answer your question? Yeah. Okay, good. Anybody else? Okay, so I don't know what the situation